So I was looking at this property today on Zillow, and it was actually a property that I had made an offer on about a year ago. And I did a video about this property as well, this deal. It was a two, it was two fourplexes. So it was two fourplexes, and these may look like windows, but they represent four units. So these are two fourplexes. Okay. Um, this lady wanted $500,000 for these fourplexes. She wanted 500K for them. I looked at them and I realized that from recent sales, I realized that each were worth about what she's asking for them. So each will sell for probably about 250 a piece. So that's what they will sell for. Now that's an as is condition. So this is as is. So this is sell for. So they'll sell for 250 a piece in as is condition. Now if they're fixed up or whatever, maybe, I don't actually know. It's hard to tell really, because there are no other fourplexes like these that have sold recently in this area that have all updated units. So it's hard to say really. I know that you will probably need about 125,000 to renovate. So to reno, you would need about 125,000 to renovate. Just okay, all eight actually. So I did this calculation earlier, and to renovate all eight of her units between the two fourplexes, you'll need about this much to do that. So that's like 15,000 per unit, I think. I think you would need around 15K to renovate all the units. These are one bed, one bath apartments, units. So one bed, one bath, small. I'm not really sure the square footage. I can't remember the square footage, but I mean, it's small. It's like 500 square feet maybe or something like that. So she wants 500,000. And when she gave me this price at the time, when I was looking at the listing today, I realized that her house was not included in this. She wanted to sell me her house along with these two fourplexes for 500K. I mean, her house was worth like 50 or $60,000. I mean, so she has something here, but man, I'm telling you, like this property. So we're just talking about the fourplexes, not her house. So when we spoke last year, she wanted to sell her house and these two fourplexes for 500K. With the house included, it looks like a deal, but that all these properties are in as is condition. And yeah, all of them may sell for 500K, but she has just the two fourplexes listed right now. She does not have her house included in her listing. So right now she has the two fourplexes listed for 500K, and they have been on the market. So they've been on the market for 256 days on market. So I was getting ready to say, maybe there was a deal there a little bit with her house included, but she was selling all of these properties to me for market value, really. In their as is condition, she could probably get 500K for these two fourplexes and if her house was included. But it's pretty obvious right now that $500,000 is not what the market is willing to pay for her two fourplexes here. So the market is not willing to pay that much for these two fourplexes. So they're not worth 250 a piece to in the market. Maybe one day someone will come by, but I mean, she's pushing almost a year here. She's pushing almost a year here. Somebody may come and be like, oh yeah, we'll just take it. But for right now, this price is too high. It's too high. And see, that's what I was afraid of back when I was speaking to this seller. I really didn't know what to offer her. I mean, I looked at some of the comparables. Luckily, there were like 2 or 3 fourplexes just like hers, which had sold within the last couple years. And the most recent one sold for around 250, or maybe it was like 290 or something like that. But it was it was between 250 and 290, this comparable that I saw. So I was basing the value of her properties off of that comparable. It's really the only one I really had. That one was the only one that had recently sold. And then there was another one and another one, but they had sold like in the last 10 years, 12 years or something like that. One had sold during the 2008 financial crisis. I really just had that one comparable, that one that sold between 250 and 290. It sold in as is condition at that price. And you know what? The unit, I remember seeing the unit. The unit looked okay. Her units look really dated, really dated. So it's obvious that this is not, the price, the value of these two fourplexes a piece. It's not 250 right now. Maybe the market would buy these two fourplexes for, it's hard to say. It's hard to say, man. Like, it's not this, so it's not 250 a piece. So what is it? You would have to get really detailed. I mean, this thing. So these two fourplexes will bring in. So she has one unit right now that's rented at $800 per month. Okay, and I think I did the calculations. I think that this property would bring in like 64K. I mean, 6,400 per month if all of the units were rented. And I think it was at this $800 a month figure. What is that? That's like probably 70 something $1,000. Let's see. So 76K is what this property could bring in. So this is gross potential income, 76K. The reason why, one of the main reasons why this property hasn't sold is because the area is like a D. So this is the area. The area is like a D. It's like a poor area. It's not really the ghetto or the hood, but it's like one step above that. And it's not, that step is not that far away from the hood, So it's a poor area. So I bet that the investors, and see, let me tell you something else. This is why, this is the exact reason why I have one investor who I'm really close with. He does not buy multifamily at all because of this. Like, look how long it's taken this person to sell this property. It's almost been a year. Now, if this was a house, if these were two houses or whatever, they would have been and sold. If they were priced right, but still, you got to look at the pool of buyers that you have. Think about the pool of buyers that this woman has here for these two fourplexes. You can get someone who can buy it and live in one of these units, maybe. That's a possibility. But for the most part, the only people that are looking at this deal, these two fourplexes, are investors. That's a small pool of people. With houses, you got everyone looking at them. You know, so one of my investors that I'm really close with, man. I asked him a long time ago. I was like, because I was like sending him multifamily deals that I was coming across, and I was like, man, you want to look at this? I got this duplex. You want to check this out? And he was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to buy any multifamily whatsoever. And I was like, why? And he said, well, it's it's really about the exit strategy with me. That's what he said. He said it's really about your exit strategy. With the house, if I wanted, if something happens and I needed to sell a house, I could sell a house. That's what he was telling me. So this is him talking, my investor friend. He was like, if I wanted to sell a house, I could sell a house. If something was to happen, if I started getting negative cash flow, doing a downturn or whatever, I could sell the house no problem and get my money back. So, houses are illiquid, but they kind of are liquid. You know what I mean? In that sense, when you think about your exit strategy, because he's right. He's right. With the house, it could sell much more quickly than a multifamily would. There are houses that are sit on the market for 256 days or a year or whatever, but the houses have a greater chance of selling quickly than when you're comparing it to a multifamily. Because if families are out there in the market and they're buying houses, for the most part, families, couples with, little kids, newlyweds, they're buying houses. They're not out there looking for fourplexes to buy. You know what I mean? And this is the majority of people, you know. So, I always think about what he said, the exit strategy. So, if you were to buy this, you have to think about that. You can't just go in this blindly and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make 76K a year. If that's the only thing that you're looking at, you're too new. You're too new. You were like me when I began. I mean, obviously, because when you're new, you don't really know nothing. But being too excited to get into the game, it'll hurt you. It'll hurt you. You got to learn it first. You got to learn some things. You got to listen to a lot of tips. But I mean, this is a good example. It's taken this woman almost a year to sell these two fourplexes. I mean, if she had some kind of obligations that she wanted to take care of with the proceeds from this sale, I mean, it's taken her almost a year to get to those obligations or to get to those. Maybe she wants to relocate. She's an older lady. She's like in her 70s or whatever. So maybe she wants to relocate and move on to greener pastures. But all that is on hold because she has to sell these properties. She's probably going to have to sell at a loss of some sort. I mean, she paid, when you count for inflation and all that over the years, because sometimes you see properties that have sold in like the 80s or the 70s or the 60s for low prices. Houses back then, I mean, the median home selling price in the 80s was like, what was it, 20,000, 30,000, something like that. Or maybe not. Maybe it was, I can't remember what it was. Let's see what it was. So let's Google median home selling price in United States in 1980s. What was the median home selling price across the nation? Oh, actually, I was wrong. This wasn't 24,000. That probably was the median income, 20 something thousand. But in the 1980s, the median home selling price in the United States was $64,000. So you know how right now the median home selling price is 400,000. Back then it was 64,000. Now, if you account for inflation, that's 64,000. Let's see, 64,000. Let's see what that would be with the inflation accounted for. What would 64K be today in March 2026, accounting for inflation? 4K, 64K, I'll say in home prices. Let's see what that is. So it says, oh, that's 1970. Hold on. 64K in home prices in the 1980s. Let's see. So $64,000 in 1980, accounting for inflation, would be roughly $260,000 today. So you know that's the equivalent of what they were spending back in those days. Yeah, I'm guessing this is right. General inflation. Yep. So $64,000 in 1980 has the same buying power as $250,000 does today. So you know when you look back, like when you're looking through the county records and looking at what people have purchased homes for back in the 80s or the 70s or whatever, you'll see these small numbers. I see it all the time. Like every day I'm looking at properties and I'm seeing people who have purchased their properties in like the 1970s. These are usually older couples. They have purchased their properties in the 1970s because I'm looking in older neighborhoods. They'll purchase their property for like, you know, $23,000. You know what I'm saying? $23,000 or $33,000 in the 80s. And you look at that and you look at the value of their house today, and it's like 300,000. So they bought it for 23,000 in 1980 or whatever, whenever. Now the property is worth 260 something thousand or $300,000. And you're like, man, that's a lot of equity. It's a lot of equity. But houses, man, an investor, man, that I know, he was totally right. You know, I'm looking at this situation because I was like really looking forward to buying this property. You know, for $400,000. You know, I was going to wholesale it to another buyer in the neighborhood, but I was really looking forward to doing this, and that's another thing that this seller here who owns these two fourplexes, she has something against the guy. There's an investor in this area who owns some multifamily, some fourplexes like she does. He has multiple though on several streets in this neighborhood. He wanted to buy this for $600,000 and she turned him down because she didn't want him to own like the whole area because he would have. You know, he has all of the multifamilies around these two fourplexes. So if he owned these two, he would own the whole entire block there. So she didn't want to sell to him because I guess she didn't want him to own the whole block. I was going to get this on a contract and sell to him. But I wrote her a letter today. So I wrote this woman a letter today, and I just want to see where she at. You know, I just want to see where she's at. she's had this thing on the market for 256 days. Um, it seems like to me this is an opportunity to get a deal. Probably, probably, I don't know. I'm still kind of sketched out by this area. I'm still kind of sketched out by this area. I talked to an investor about this deal, and he was telling me that this is definitely something that you would want to broker, wholesale or something like that, because keeping a property in this area, he wouldn't recommend it. But if you look at pictures and everything, the area looks good. It looks like a pretty good area if you're just looking at the pictures, but you have to like drive the neighborhood. And I have yet to drive this neighborhood yet. If I'm being honest, I have yet to drive this neighborhood. And man, I ain't gonna lie, man, I'm kind of afraid of the exit strategy. Cause what if I buy this and it turns out to be a crap deal, because I'm so ready to buy something. If she sells these properties for a cheap enough price, I may be tempted to buy one of these fourplexes, because I still have that bug. I still have that itch. I want to get into rentals, quickly. I want to get into it now because time is passing, and then you got your family and all that. Um, you know, it's when you an adult, because I'm almost 40 years old. When you an adult, when you turn like my age, because I'm 36, and you got a family and all that, man, you start like, you want to get so far ahead, you know, um, financially, because it'll support your family, that y'all can go on more vacations and all that. You want to do all these things. I mean, when you get to my like where I'm at, um, I'm thinking about millions, millions and millions and millions of dollars. I'm thinking about wealth, generational wealth. I'm not thinking about $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. I'm not really thinking about that. I'm thinking about generational wealth, and like, leaving something to my kids. That's really kind of why we're all out here doing what we're doing, trying to be successful, because we're trying to leave this generational wealth. We're trying to start something that may have never been started in your family, for years or ever. So I'm trying to, that's what I'm thinking about. And I'm trying not to be desperate, because I could, like I was saying a minute ago, I'm so desperate to get something like, something like this, and get this wealth coming in from owning property. I'm afraid that I'll make a mistake. And see, sometimes when you be afraid like that you're gonna make a mistake, you don't buy anything. Sometimes I feel like I'm in that trap sometimes. Like, whenever I'm looking at a property, I'm always listing out the negatives. I'm always listing them out. I'm like, nah, it's too big. You know what I'm saying? It's too big, too small. I was looking at a property today, and a guy had bought this big giant house, and it was like, I mean, it wasn't a giant house, but it had like, it was like 2,300 square feet. And he made the same mistake that I talked about in one of my other videos that a new investor made. So this house was 2,300 square feet. This guy paid 54 grand for this house, in 2021. So he got like if he didn't pay cash for it, he got a 3% interest rate. So he's good. He's really good. He bought this for 54K in 2021. He went in there and renovated the house. And I don't know what he spent, but the house, I was looking at it today. It had, he put new flooring in there, new cabinets. It looked okay. It still didn't look right. Still didn't look right, but it was okay. It's in okay condition. I'm sure it looked far different than it did when he bought it at 54. but he's trying to sell the house now for man, how much was he trying to? Oh man, he started selling the house for like 160 something thousand, or maybe 100. He started selling it at like 170K, and then he would wait a month and drop it 10K. Then he would wait another month, and because I was looking at the history of the price changes, and every month he was dropping it, you know, another 10K every month until now. This is where he's at. He's at 110K now in March of 2026. This is where he's at now. Look at all of this. He didn't know the market. He did not know the market. He saw this big house, all this square footage, and he was like, "Oh man, who's going to pass that up?" But this area, the average house in this area is selling for like 60 something thousand, like 68K. That's the average selling price in this area. Cause it's a bunch of crap houses. If I'm honest, it's a bunch of crap houses in this area. So he bought this thing at 54, which is kind of really like close to the average of what houses are selling for in that area. He bought it for this, and he thought he was gonna get somebody in there that would pay $170,000 to stay in a neighborhood where the average house is selling for this. Is he crazy? But see, this is what happens when you don't, really understand the market and understand like this square footage thing, man. People be thinking that, oh yeah, so this house right here sold for $100 per square foot. Oh man, if I get this house, it'll sell for $230,000 because that'll be $100 a square foot. You wrong, bro. You have to think logically. Would somebody spend $230,000 to stay in a neighborhood where the average house is selling for 70K? No, these are different classes of people. These people will just go to a neighborhood where houses, for the most part, are selling on average for 230K. They'll go to a neighborhood like that. These people don't want to, you can't. These people gonna move in here and spend like $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month to stay in an area where people are spending, $500 a month to stay in. Is you crazy? People aren't doing that. So no one is going to pay almost $1,000, $1,100 a month to stay in a place where stay in this type of area. You got to think logically first, bro. You got to look at everything first. Real estate is kind of complicated. You have to study it, and it has to be like a lifelong study. And you have to look at people's mistakes. But don't worry, like I was saying earlier, you get kind of apprehensive of buying anything when you're trying to be careful. But don't worry, because you learn and you learn and you learn and you look at people making mistakes. And you realize like, dang, when your opportunity comes up, you're not going to be a fool. You're going to look at something and you're going to really look at it for what it is. You're not going to be blinded by silly crap like this, trying to sell a house for $170,000 in an area where these houses are at, you're not going to be a fool once you start studying the market and everything. I used to hate that old adage where people would say, I used to hear investors say that online a lot. They would say, you have to study your market. You have to study your market. I'm like, and when I began, I was like, man, I don't want to study a market. I don't have time for that. I just want to, make $10,000. That's all I want to do. But they right though, as you keep doing this, you have to study the market. You have to look at the market and see what things are selling for. So this guy is selling this house for 110K. It might sell for this, it might end up selling for this because this is like right around where it probably should sell at, since it's kind of big and it's fixed up a little bit. So he probably will get this. I think this thing would sell for really 90 to 80K. I think this is really what the ARV is, for this area, for this house. I think it'll sell for somewhere along in there. It would have sold quickly, at least. Because now I think this guy has had this house for over a year. You know, somebody was about to buy it at 120, but they backed out of it. They probably financing. They probably couldn't get the financing for it, because the guy didn't the guy who bought this property and renovated it, it still looked like crap on the outside. So I'm sure the roof probably isn't in good shape. That's probably why these people probably lost their financing here. The bank was probably like, oh no, bro, we can't give you a loan for this thing. The roof is probably crap. This guy done had this for a year now. It's back on the market. It's $10,000 less than what he was, he was about to sell it. So, he's kind of right there in the value. It's in here somewhere. Probably more along here, probably like 100K. But he has lost so much. I don't know what he spent. He's probably still in the game, because look, he's dropping this by 10,000. So he's like, yeah, he's like, man, it's not selling, but I still got some profit. He probably went in here and did all the work himself. Had to, because look at these drops. I mean, look at these drops, $10,000 every month. He had to get in there himself, and fix the property up himself. He probably was doing all the labor himself and just paying for materials. So he's probably not in for that much, especially if he bought this with a loan. He's paying holding costs, but I mean, he's paying what, like $500 a month or something like that. He's not paying much, because he would have been put down $10,000, and see, that would be 10 minus that, so 44. So he probably has a loan for like 44,000, and so he's paying $200 or $300 a month to hold his property. You know what I'm saying? Not counting insurance and taxes and keeping the lights on and the water running and all that. So he's probably holding his property for like $500 a month. So he's a year in though. $500, that's $6,000 that he's probably lost just holding it. But if he can make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on this, and so what would that put him at, like 70 something? Yeah. So even if but the materials that he bought the property with, he probably could still make a profit at 80 or 90K, somewhere along in there. I mean, it just depends. This is a lot of square footage, bro. This ain't like 1,000 square feet, where you buy materials for 1,000 square feet. This is 2,300. So you have purchased materials for 2,300 square feet of a house. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I was looking at this guy and see how you can just learn a lesson from just looking. I was just looking on Zillow. I'm just scrolling on Zillow and just, checking Zillow out and looking at what people are selling and the mistakes that they're making. People are failing every day, and you don't want to see this happen, because you're in the business yourself if you're doing this, and you want it to all work. You want it to all work like you thinking. You thinking, oh, I'm gonna buy the house at this and then flip it and then sell it at this and make money, and I'm just gonna keep doing that for the rest of my life. But there are situations going on out there just like this. And if you don't go and look at this and study what the mistakes that these people are making, you are going to fail. But you fail and fail and fail until you win. But I want my failures to be minimal. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them to be catastrophic. You know what I'm saying? Like what's happening to this guy. I mean, he's losing out on a lot of money, like a lot of potential money that he thought he was going to make, and then maybe he went and ran his mouth and told everybody that, yeah, he's like, yeah, I fixed it up and I'm selling it for 170. I'm gonna make, 100K, you know what I'm saying? Or so whatever he gonna make. But that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I sent that woman a letter about her fourplexes. I'm not really interested. I'm not really interested anymore in those fourplexes. I'm not really interested, because I'm really looking for something to buy for myself. I'm not really looking to wholesale nothing. or bird dog, nothing. I'm not really looking for none of that. I'm really looking for something to buy, and I'm not really interested in her two fourplexes, but I'm curious. I cannot. To me, it's worth sending a mailer, spending 75 cents on a stamp to send her a mailer to ask her, where is she at? Where is she at? Like, where are you at? What's in your mind? Like, are you pissed because this thing is just sitting? She hasn't dropped the price at all. I forgot to mention that on these two fourplexes. She has not dropped the price at all during this 256 days. She has not dropped the price once. I was looking at the price history. She didn't drop the price at all. She's at 500K. So maybe she's stubborn. Maybe she's stubborn. I don't know. Where is her head at? When I was speaking to her, she was such a nice lady, and she respected me because I respected her. I was nice to her and everything. But I wonder where her head is. I wonder what she's thinking. And I'm wondering, what are these fourplexes worth? You would look at this income and be like, oh yeah, it's worth, 700,000 or something like that. Cause you multifamily is based off income or whatever. But man, it's a lot of factors going to this. And then this is a D area. So the cap rate should be really high for this property because it's in a risky area. So the cap rate is going to be high because it's not worth that much. The value of the property is not going to be really high like it would be in A or B area, because in the A and B area, the values are really high. So that means that the cap rates are low. They're like 6%, 5%. So with this one, I don't know, bro. I don't know. In a risky area, you should be getting at least a 15% cash on cash return. So whatever gets you that, it's a good rule of thumb. As you get to more, areas that are better, a 10% return is cool, cash on cash. Now these are cap rates. Now, once you get your financing, once you get financing, that can double. That cash on cash will double. So I guess, when I say cash on cash, when I was saying it at first, I was meaning the cap rate, cap rate. So, cap rate is what you would spend on a property cash, and the percent, what you get. And actually, you know what? This is gross. This is not what the NOI did, because cap rates are based on NOI. So I'm mistaken. So what would be the NOI on this? So let's see, 76K. Let's take out vacancies and collection. So let's take out 3,800. So 76K. Let's take out 3,800. Now you at 72. I don't think that there's any other incomes there. Maybe, I don't know if it's a washing machine. I don't know. But let's take out about 60%. Well, let's keep 60%, take out 40%. So now you at 43,000. And then if you get debt on this, let's say you buy it for what she's offering it for. So one of these, oh wait, this 6,400 is for both of them. Okay, so let's say you spend 500,000. So 4,300 is what your NOI would be. 43,000. I'm sorry, not 4,300. 43,000 would be your NOI, and you would put down $100,000 on this. Then you would have 400,000 as your loan, and that would be $2,800 per month. So 43,000 divided by that's for the year, right? Okay, so that's for the year, right. Okay, so 4,300 divided by 12, so that's $3,500 per month that you'll be getting in rent from these two. 3,500. The debt service on this would be around 2,800. So you're not getting anything. I got $800 a month as your profit. Am I doing this right? Yeah. $6,400 a month. That's nothing. Yeah, that's that. Then let's just make it easy. Yeah, let's do 60,000 of that. Yeah, $46,000 a year, and then that's what I'm saying. That's why this thing is not selling, because no one can make any money from it. And then also, you got to put this $125,000 down for, renovations. Yeah. So the debt service on this would be $28,000. $2,800 per month. You're not making nothing, but you're making $3,500 a month, and this is minus $2,800 for your debt service, and you haven't even put no reserves away or anything like that. You're making $700-800 a month. That's why this thing isn't selling, because it's not worth what she's selling it for. Yeah, I would have to figure out. I can do math all day. I love doing the math. I love doing the math, but this thing will make probably $800 a month in profit. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna send her something. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to send her anything. You can raise the rents. Saying like, so after you put this $125,000 down, you can raise the rents. But I don't know how much, because it's hard to tell. And see, that's another thing. You know what? I may not send her nothing, because there's no good comparables in the area. So you just investing blindly. You cannot invest blindly, bro. You can, if you got the money to do it, or if you got the back end, the resources to invest blindly, then do it. So you do what you want with your money, but I can't invest blindly. You need to have good comparables. You need to see other people renovating their fourplexes and raising the rent, so you can see what you can do. If you're the first one over the hill, it's like, you have to take whatever's coming. And then the others that come after you, they'll be able to see your mistakes and make adjustments. But I don't know. That's another thing that you kind of disregard. It's like, you be so excited to try to make money doing this. You fail to see these things, and man, you'll think that like I said before, you'll think that you will never buy anything, but you will. You will. I'm still motivated by my past, when I have come in contact with, saw deals that were so obvious, and I was so pissed off in the past because I couldn't buy them. I couldn't buy them. Like my first couple wholesale deals, man, they were obvious deals. And it's crazy because in hindsight, I'm looking back at them and I'm like, damn, bro, if I had the money back then, I would have bought them, because they were that good. It was that much spread. It was that many comparables around to justify, renovations or whatever you wanted to do to make money out of this property. There was that many comparables around. They were in pretty good areas, okay areas. The properties were in okay condition for the most part. They were at great prices. deals, when you get a deal, man, it should be obvious. It should be obvious, like really good deals. It should be obvious. Like when you have to when you have to do like what I'm doing, trying to make it work, because you feel like you're missing something, so you're trying to make it work. These types of deals end up being disasters. They end up not being as lucrative as as a deal could be if you just wait around for a really good one. But some people, they so impatient, man, and sometimes you can't help it. You can't help but to be impatient because you got things you need to take care of. But I'm an advocate for, if you can be comfortable where you at right now and just wait around for one of those obvious deals, you'll make up for the time that you lost by not buying anything. By like buying little small deals, you would make up for that if you buy something that's really, really good in the near future. So that's all I want to talk about today. I'll talk to you later.